You know, I was told at some point, Tiral, that murder hobo hotels have a certain charm to them.
They absolutely do.
All right, on that note, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the LoneWolf Howlcast, howling out for logic and reason. Picking up this week as I think something big happens this week, right, Tiral? Something towards the end of the week. There's this thing that the whole world gets involved in.
I think it's evil. I think it's a waste of time and money and destroys economies.
We can agree on the waste of money part for all the pomp and circumstance and the buildings that are left behind. But the Olympics is starting, folks. The Olympics is coming up. We've been saying it a few times now that we're going to circle back around to the political discussion, as I'm sure some of you have missed. And we are going to address the Olympics letting men participate in the women's divisions.
Well, it's not men participating in women's divisions. It's trans athletes in the game. You know, we had the first trans
Who are
athletes.
dudes.
No, I mean, who were male at the beginning of their lives and they're not
32
male
years
now.
old, and then decided. So this is something we spoke about previously, Tiral. I think we're going to lead back. We're going to circle back to this, right? But the Olympics has an insane strict policy on any kind of performance-enhancing drug use, and even stuff that's outside of performance-enhancing. I know a couple years ago, I think a female swimmer got DQ'd because she had traces of whatever the active ingredient in Benadryl is in her blood. The woman that the runner. No, Sha'Carri?
Sha'Carri.
Sha'Carri Richardson, I think, right?
Broke records as a
Right,
sprinter.
and now she just got DQ'd because they found weed in her system.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not even performance enhancing. If anything, that's a performance deterrent.
Well, it was in her system when she smoked weed to handle the depression from her mother dying.
By the way, I'm not saying she's wrong, folks. I'm saying let the poor girl compete.
Yeah.
It's definitely not like she was smoking steroids.
No,
She was
definitely.
smoking a depressant.
And my point was that she was smoking weeks before the event. You know, it wasn't like she smoked.
Yeah, it's not like she was in the locker room token up.
No, it was weed just stays in your system. So I actually have an issue with one of the things you said about like the strict standards for performance enhancing drugs. Like the IOC has let countries like China and Russia go with severe doping scandals. You know, they say like, oh, you're banned for 4 years, then a year later, like, oh, everything's fine.
You're going to have to provide some documentation for that so we can link that to the listeners. Because I'm sure people are going to want to check that out. I want to read up on that too.
Yeah, I mean, in the last summer game, in the Winter Games in Russia, there was massive Russian cheating to the point where like the IOC was losing face, and so they had to like say something. But I want to. We're going to go back to that later because I think it's pertinent to the discussion.
Performance-enhancing drugs, no good. You get caught, you get booted. How about this? How about this idea? Deciding that all of a sudden you're trans whatever so that you can compete against women is the new performance-enhancing drug. How about that as an idea, right? Because Laurel Hubbard was nobody when competing against other men, and now is in the women's powerlifting division and is crushing records.
The thing is, the part of that question is wrong. It's not that these trans athletes wanted to win and decided like becoming a woman was the way to win.
That's my point of conjectures. I think that might be the plan.
I don't think that's ever been the case. I don't think that's such a harsh thing to do to your body and such a socially hard
Have you seen pictures of Laurel Hubbard?
I have.
Looks like a dude still. Not a lot going on there with
What I'm
hormone
saying
replacement.
is I would say almost 100% of trans athletes had decided to transition and still want to compete. Not that they wanted to compete and get an edge. There's been a couple of like right-wing trolls who've like done the South Park thing. It was like, I identify as a woman and participated in women's athletics. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about like, the people who've gone through and made a decision and, they're living their lives as a sex not of their birth.
So one of the things I find most offensive is that men think they can women better than actual women, right? If you're going to transition to a woman, why not still compete against the men, right? You've had X amount of years of testosterone, bone density, and muscle mass working to your advantage. You cannot deny that that is an advantage if you're a man that decides to transition to a woman and goes into a woman's sport, or a women's division rather, to compete.
So that's the law in Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania, I think perhaps Texas, I might be wrong on which one of the states that's also really into wrestling. If you're a wrestler and you're born male, you can't compete with girls. You have to compete with your birth. It's been not great because you had female to male wrestlers who've competed with girls and they just wipe the girls out because they're on testosterone in high school.
Right.
And then you have male to female wrestlers who have to compete with guys and they get wiped out because now they have estrogen in their systems. I think me and Lone Wolf, we want to emphasize this is not a simple conundrum. This is a very ethically complicated and hard. This is not like oversimplifying things like.
Man, Tiral, you have a lot more faith than me.
I mean, it's really not, because okay, let's say in the example you just said, like if a born male has transitioned to a female, if they have too many years as a male, they're going to have so many of the masculine muscle mass.
A perfect example of that is Fallon Fox.
Yeah.
32-year-old MMA fighter. Didn't even tell UFC, by the way, I used to be a dude, until he got caught.
Did Fallon Fox make it to the UFC?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I might have the brand wrong, but I know it was professional MMA. Joe Rogan talks about it. It must have been UFC. He wouldn't talk about a different brand.
No, Rogan talks about, because she never was good. She was never good.
Right, exactly.
So
and Rogan said the same, that it was like a slap fest, except that it's male muscle and bone density behind the incoming punches and kicks against the women.
Right.
You know? He said repeatedly that Fallon Fox looked amazing because it was a dude fighting women in the ring, and if Fallon Fox went in the male division, Fallon Fox was pretty much unheard of.
Well, I was right. Like, she never made it out of like developmental or smaller fighting circuits. She was never good. She wasn't skilled. She only fought 6 times,
But again, forget the stats. The whole point is, right? Male biology, years of male biology now introduced into a female division.
Yeah, I would also like to preface that me and Lone Wolf aren't talking about trans athletes that transition before puberty. We're not talking, because those people then, the case that, you had male hormones throughout your body, you had musculature, your skeletal system is different. That's not necessarily the case. We're only talking about people who later on in life, adults, have changed. Like Fallon Fox did not report that she was a trans athlete to a bunch of her fights. Imagine being the female on the other side, not knowing.
Right, it's like, what the hell is this chick on, and why does it feel like a Mack truck is hitting me in the face?
Yeah, she wasn't skilled. She hit people to win. That was a bad thing, I think.
Yeah.
That was to allow her to get through.
So let's circle back to the case of Laurel Hubbard here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for those of you that don't know who Laurel Hubbard is,
she's in weightlifting.
Laurel Hubbard decided to be a woman in his 30s. All right, and I actually have a New York Post link that I'll be popping up in the comments for this. So that's 30 plus years testosterone and muscle mass versus women of the same age. And I don't know what Laurel Hubbard's former name was, but whatever, you could change your name legally, I think, in just about every country, so it doesn't matter. Laurel was already competing in men's weightlifting prior to jumping into women's competition. Already had the training, strength, and muscle mass to compete against men, let alone women. And then besides,
you lose some of it when you transition.
You really need to see some pictures of Laurel Hubbard.
No, I've seen her. I mean, like, let's not look, use. This goes back to one of our previous conversations on the podcast. I actually don't blame Laurel Hubbard. I blame the IOC.
You know what? I agree with you on that one.
Like, the IOC, instead of making hard decisions, made easy decisions, and they set the standard in you're male or female depending on the levels of hormones you have as to. And they set some guidelines that says, like, if you're underneath this much or if you have this much of X.
I actually have those numbers. IOC guidelines issued in 2015. So I don't know if they've been updated since 2020 or not, or 2021. But 2015 guidelines said any transgender athlete could compete as a woman, provided their testosterone levels are below 10 nanomoles per liter for at least 12 months prior to their first competition. So that's according to the IOC guidelines.
By making this hard and fast, dumb standard, you're effectively ignoring the past medical history of every athlete. Like we said, like she decided to transition at 32. This standard effectively ignores her first 32 years as a male. And this may sound crazy, but it's true. She absolutely surpassed all the standards according to the IOC. She had way more female hormones in her than was required, and so on and so forth. Like, because she's going through transition and she's maintaining. So not only did this athlete surpass the standard, she's being hated on for it because everyone's like, oh, you're cheating. She's abiding by the laws made by the IOC. It's the IOC that we should be yelling at and angry at.
Yeah, the authoritative organization in charge of it all.
These standards also kind of give people who are using performance enhancing drugs like a guideline. Okay, this is how much I can cheat. You can be a female and your country or you yourself may decide like, hey, you need to be on steroids. Well, now I know, along with masking agents, these are the numbers I need to hit to fly through.
Right.
And that also, so by the time you get tested, you can fly through completely, but we're ignoring your entire medical history prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, it's them we should be angry at, because they're the ones who are supposed to set the laws and regulations and make for a fair competition for everybody involved. They clearly didn't make a fair competition, because Hubbard is projected to win her weight class.
Right. As soon as Hubbard became, decided to be a woman, crushed records, like by a lot, not just, by lifting a little bit more, by like lifting a lot more.
Right.
Well, I'm going to call it a meme. It's not a meme, but that's what everybody calls a JPEG these days anyway, is a meme. But it was the original world record holder for the women's powerlifting, and it was her getting ready with the bar and the weights stacked on the end. And then right next to it is the picture of Laurel Hubbard getting ready with the bar. And like, the stack of weights is a significant difference on the bar. This actually leads into yet another transgender athlete who doesn't believe the research out there. There's a Kate Weatherly, who is a mountain biker out of New Zealand. By the way, I think for the sake of transparency, Laurel Hubbard is also from New Zealand. So clearly, the science doesn't matter when it's not in your favor. Kate Weatherly, who transitioned as a teenager, has become a national champion competing against women in mountain biking. Guess where Kate Weatherly was when she was a guy? Nowhere. Not even on the radar in mountain biking. Usually finished last or close to last. So there's multiple cases. I'm not going to bore everybody with that tonight. I'll put the links in the comments. But there's multiple cases of evidence that deciding to transgender into the women's division gives you a performance enhancement edge, whether you're on drugs or not. I think it'd be the new wave of performance enhancing drugs, and nobody could say no. Right? How do you prove I don't think I'm a woman?
I don't think anybody decides to transition to a different sex for competition's sake. I think that's who they are inside, and they just want to compete. And the IOC, their job should just be creating a marketplace so that competition can happen in a fair and safe way, and that's not what they're doing right now.
That's what I was going to lead up to, is that right now everybody is stunning and brave because Laurel gets to compete against women in the Olympics. Instead of, we discussed this previously, Tiral, a few times actually, the answer is obvious, right? The workaround to make this appeal to everybody is so obvious. Why the hell didn't they just do it? Have your own division, right? Transgender men to women compete against other transgender men to women.
Or men, or female to male.
Right, all of that too, right? But you wouldn't want female to male competing against male to female, right? Have two separate divisions. That way it completely negates the argument of past biological history, medical history. It negates it. It just it levels the playing field right out of the gate.
The only negative I see to this is that you need the population of trans athletes to grow to a point where you can have a division.
There, you can have like 30, 40, 50
it,
people competing in something.
Right. That's the real only downside.
And not all from one country.
Correct.
Right. For it to be Olympic level.
That's the only downside I see to it. I mean, that's from a logistics and practicality, but from a theoretical point of view, I think that's fair. It is very fair. Also, we don't get to stigmatize these athletes, and we don't, we're not, you know what I mean? We're not making them stick out.
Right. I would actually, you folks probably can figure out how I feel about the subject matter in general. I would actually watch that. If they had their own divisions, I would check it out. I
mean, hell, me and you watched the Paralympics.
Yeah.
Like, we had a great time watching that. Like, it's not, competition is competition. It's fun, to watch.
Right.
Especially.
So let me stop you there for a sec, Tiral, right? You wouldn't pick somebody from the Paralympics, or you wouldn't pick somebody from the main Olympics to compete against somebody in the Paralympics, right?
No,
so why the hell would you take a dude and put him in the women's division? That makes no sense at all. So the idea of a separate division, you're right, it makes a hell of a lot of sense, and I would be really inclined to, I would check it out. I'd probably watch that more than the main Olympics.
I mean, we just watch it, period. It's right now, like looking at the experience in Pennsylvania, which I'm familiar with, where they force you to compete in your birth gender.
Mm-hmm.
It's no fun for anybody. Like I've seen the wrestlers, like the female wrestlers are upset that a male.
Right, because they're also the actual females are losing the scholarships. Like the out of high school.
There's only been one or two girls that have lost scholarships to a trans athlete. I think it's Connecticut is a famous example. It's not this huge, scourge on NCAA. What I mean to say about the Pennsylvania is that it's literally not fun for anybody. So when a trans female is wrestling against males because the state forced her to compete against males, the guys that they're competing against, they're not happy to like just wipe them out. They're not, they're not, and when the trans males are competing against women wrestlers, then no one's happy. It's like the unhappy compromise, or the compromise is that you're allowing trans athletes to compete. Unfortunately, you're forcing them to stay with the gender that they were born with. So on one hand, they're most likely, if you're male to female, they most likely get crushed, and if you're female to male, you're most likely to crush the others. So they're not happy with this, and the people they're competing against aren't happy either. And it's just, I don't know if there's a good solution to this. And telling people not to pursue their passion or hobby, that's also a really tough thing. If you were born to run and you happen to be born in the wrong body.
Well, speaking of running, there's the other thing we were discussing earlier too, about the 4 Chinese runners, the 400-meter runners. Was it a relay? Or was it was a 400-meter relay, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna put the links to the pictures in the comments, folks. But yeah,
the Chinese watchers or viewers were concerned that these two of them sounded like males. And
I'm looking at the pictures. They have chiseled, manly. Now I know normally roids gives you that puffy, rounded jaw, but maybe on women it's a different effect. Maybe it is just roids, or I don't know what the hell's going on.
If you're running and you're losing weight, you don't get to keep that puff.
Right, but these are chiseled, manly superhero, comic book superhero style jaws.
I mean, on one hand, it's like, are we kicking two not pretty women and while they're down, or
correction, two pretty guys.
I mean, or are we looking at something? And I keep mentioning the voice part because that's what the Chinese audience started commenting. It's not just that they look masculine; they sound masculine. And
they also went and got those super short, approved government haircuts.
Yeah.
Which lends to the male effect.
This goes back to the talk about previous medical history. Let's assume we don't know this. This is just alleged. We're just going off what our eyes are. We're not saying we've seen any tests. Assume they were juicing. All you have to do is pass the blood test or the piss test at the beginning of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So you ignore everything prior to the competition. You can mask, you can get off cycles, you can do all this stuff so that when it's time to get tested, you can pass. What's the difference to me if we have athletes competing that are taking performance-enhancing chemicals and drugs, but just happen to know how to pass the test, or in Russia's case, happen to hack the testing center?
Yeah, hack the system.
Yeah, so it's we can argue about trans athletes who are public about who they are, except for Fallon Fox, and she got hurt for.
She's never going to fight again.
No, not after you're lying.
Not professionally, anyway.
Yeah,
they're caught lying about it.
So these athletes in the Olympics, they're not hiding anything. They're declaring their status. They're getting tested above and beyond what regular athletes are. I don't want them to be the focus of online hate when you have other athletes who are taking all sorts of things, but just know how to pass the test.
Yeah, know how to. I think, what did you say earlier? They know how to mask it in their blood.
Yeah, mask it in using the urine, and things like that. And it's just a complicated issue because people want to win. People love winning. If you're a Chinese athlete and you win gold, you have a job for life. If you win silver, you don't. And that kind of pressure makes you want to do things. Makes you decide, maybe I could do this and get a job for life.
But then, in the case of Laurel Hubbard, who's been crushing records, will most likely take gold in the women's division.
Yeah.
that hurts the actual women that are competing. That's a big detriment to them. And that's got to be like 1,000,000 to 1 odds on the books right now if you're going to vote for or bet on one of the women to actually win.
Yeah, you can probably bet on everyone but her and still be like 1,000,000 to 1. It's not
right. Like Laurel's going to be the one, maybe even the 1 to 1 odds.
Yeah, yeah, like
or on Laurel, but then like the previous expected winner is probably going to have horrific odds on the books stacked.
Honestly, this is going to come off very, very mean, and I don't want. I hope it's not coming from that place, but I think the best thing that Hubbard could have done was stop competing in like a organized multinational stage, so that she could have just kept competing in locals and little things and kept up the hobby. Like if you love powerlifting, like you can keep up the hobby and not make this such a focus, because now I think you would agree with me, she's effectively hurting trans rights.
Not only that, she's hurting the women's competition.
I mean, of course she's hurting the women's competition.
By the way, you don't have to apologize for crap, Tiral.
No,
have you noticed we've been doing this for 11 months? Not a single comment. We're good. Keep going. Yeah. Keep going. Keep flying the path you're on, buddy. Not even any hate mail.
Not even spam.
Dude, I have not even gotten... Because, there's an email address associated with the channel. I haven't even gotten a car warranty hit yet.
Oh.
All right, come on, folks. Join the conversation. We want to hear from you.
I think forget what's technically right. I think what's actually would have been ethically right for her would have been just to end her competition career at these organized states, like unorganized, small things, locals. I think she could keep pursuing her passion. But at this stage, she's giving people who hate trans people, not just athletes, just the whole trans and LGBTQ people bad name. It's a bad look. The optics are horrific. It's
especially when Laurel wins.
Yeah, and especially when we know she's gonna win.
Yeah, it's not even an if. Yeah. It's unless something supernatural happens.
She gets injured.
Or gets injured, or somehow the number 2 slot, who's formerly the number 1 slot, takes it somehow. Somehow, maybe this this cocktail of drugs in Laurel's system. I mean, maybe something. I'm not wishing harm on anybody, by the way, folks. But maybe somehow something blows out while she's doing her top lift. Who knows? I hope not. I don't want to see anybody hurt over it.
It would have been a lot better for everyone involved if the first trans athlete that was approved to compete in the Olympics was someone who there was no advantages. There was no like ping pong. Horse racing is an Olympic sport.
Right.
Ballroom dancing is an Olympic sport.
Curling, it wouldn't matter a whit at all.
No one cares. Yeah, curling. There's so many sports that are gender neutral.
Oh, holy shit, Tiral. You just opened up my mind to something that... Yeah. Suppose trans women decide to join the women's hockey teams.
If they can make the team.
Dude, they're going to be bludgeoning the other players.
Yeah.
Like, that's a Fallon Fox all over again.
That would be.
I mean, I know the Olympic regulations on ice hockey are nothing like American ice hockey. They're way more strict.
Yeah.
I don't think there's no fighting. I don't think there's any cross-checking either.
I think there is.
I think you still knock... I mean, this is off the top of our head, folks. I think you can still smash somebody into the boards. But okay, you've got a guy who's 200 pounds, maybe 180 pounds after, transgender therapy. You got women, they're pushing what, 150, 160 maybe? Boom!
Again, all they have to do is pass those.
Right, which is silly. So it goes back to, I think what we both agreed upon before this, is a separate division. Now, the biggest issue, obviously, there's 2 issues I see. The one that you mentioned earlier is there's simply not enough athletes to fill it yet. Anyway, but the way the world is trending is that'll probably be, I'll say like next 10, 12 years, there'll probably be 30, a lot more athletes.
30, 40.
You think 30? Another generation?
Yeah.
Take a full gen?
Because the cost of transitioning is still so super high. The science has gotten a lot better and a lot faster, but expense is still a factor.
The other issue I would see is, this is being the devil's advocate here, but the blowback of, well, why do we have to compete differently? Why do we have to compete in our own division when I'm just a woman? Says Laurel Hubbard, who weighs in at 200 and something pounds. So hopefully they get their heads out of their asses and actually create once there's enough people to fill the slots to actually make it a competition, to have a separate division.
I firmly believe that it's IOC's fault for not making hard decisions. They could
And just saying no, sorry.
They could have done, as we were talking, I was thinking about how you could label sports gender neutral or gender specific. You could label curling gender neutral.
Right, because it makes no impact at all.
Right.
But then again, like...
skateboarding. You can say that's gender neutral.
Or even... maybe
any non-contact.
Maybe not snowboarding, because you need your weight and your mass to get that thing moving. But
that's a hard conversation. To make that call about snowboarding requires people willing to make a hard decision and get shit for it afterwards. And just say, this is what we're saying. This is it.
Yeah.
Like, the IOC refused to be responsible and honestly court controversy.
Which is weird, because the IOC is not really something that suffers from the court of public opinion and the social justice narrative. Right? Like, they did Rio, and nobody wanted them in Rio, and there was all sorts of
Brazilians didn't want them there, yeah.
All sorts of protests about the money they were wasting on the Olympic Village that could have gone to the poorest areas in the world.
Abandoned stadiums.
And IOC is like, meh, don't care, we're building it anyway.
Because they're making money. They're corrupt. Everyone knows.
So, seeing as they don't really suffer the fallout, they're kind of in a pocket dimension, I guess, that doesn't suffer the fallout of...
So let's you and I go through, I'm just going to, not every sport, but I'm going to say,
sure.
I'm going to throw out a sport to you, you tell me...
You and I are smart enough, we can figure this out for everybody.
Okay, yeah, gender neutral or not. Okay, so I'm going to pick 3x3 basketball.
Well, that would have to be gendered.
I think so too.
Right.
Yeah, artistic swimming.
Gendered, by the way, means that you're actually a male or you're actually a woman.
Let's say we were born...
I'm sticking with what I'm saying, Tiral.
No, we should be specific. That says, like...
You be specific for you, I'm going to be specific for me.
When we say gender neutral, we say like it doesn't matter who's playing, but when we say it's gendered, we're saying that maybe there's an issue that someone has to take a harder look. With basketball, we would say that
it's got to be gendered.
We got to take a harder look at archery.
Well, it depends. If you're male, you can pull the bow. You can pull a higher poundage bow, but I don't know what the...
It's just about accuracy. It's not about weight. As long as you make...
Yeah, but if you have a higher poundage, the arrow stays flat longer. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like shooting a projectile faster. It stays flat longer before it starts to drop off.
True.
So I would honestly say archery would have to stay gendered.
Okay, I would
say...
Now,
that depends, though. Yeah. If the Olympics has a restriction on what poundage bow you can use, if there's a poundage that the women can pull...
there's a limit, yeah.
If there's a limit, then sure. Then that'd be... What did you say before? Not gendered?
Gender neutral.
Gender neutral, yeah.
Artistic swimming.
That's still a thing?
That's a thing. Okay, I'm coming up with all the crazy sports, by the way. So.
All right, so again, as I said before, folks, I'm going to play the part of the devil's advocate a little bit. I would think with male biology, you might be able to swim stronger.
No, women have the advantage.
I think they would, though, in artistic, though, right? Because they're lighter.
They can move, hold air longer.
And they're lighter and they can move easier in the water, maybe, instead of just swimming straight really as fast as you can. No. So maybe gender neutral for artistic. I mean, SNL pulled it off. Why not?
BMX freestyle.
Totally gender neutral. But then again, though, if they're competing against as a male, you could probably pedal harder.
I mean, BMX freestyle is literally going up like blocks and mountains, simulate mountains. So they like.
I thought BMX freestyle is when you came down the ramp and then you had to pull off some moves in the air.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what that is.
Okay.
So it's so hard. It's getting hard all of a sudden.
This is a hard one. Diving. Yeah, that's a hard. I think that's gender neutral.
But if you're on the board and you're a male, you have more mass hitting the board, and then you could jump higher.
Yeah, but then you also hit the water harder. And
you do, but you have that extra half a second to pull off your move before you hit the water.
But you have more mass to make a splash, and that's what they take points off.
I think you just opened up a category that if it's gender neutral, did they remove some of the point categories too?
Oh yeah, they would have to adjust the rules.
Right, they'd have to adjust the points for that.
You're right.
Okay, so if that's the case, in this hypothetical, as Robitaille would say, the hypothetical, or the theoretical versus the practical. So this is the theoretical. So the theoretical would be that if it's gender neutral for high dive or diving, then they would also have to, the expectation is that the points would be adjusted as well, then gender neutral.
Yeah. Rhythmic gymnastics.
That's still a thing too?
Still a thing. I'm just picking all the ridiculous ones, by the way.
You know how many people you just offended by calling rhythmic gymnastics? You know how many Russians you just offended?
That's true.
To the Vors and Vanya out there, I have nothing to do with this. That's all Tiral. I just watched Eastern Promises the other night. So.
Fantastic movie.
Right?
Fantastic, absolutely. Viggo
I
Mortensen can do anything.
I hope there's a director's cut of that movie out there because I want to see more.
There is a cut. There's a uncut. They said like a red band, like where they allowed more things.
Oh, I gotta watch more of that then. All right. Anyway, back to this. So, rhythmic gymnastics. See, but again, that involves the ball, right, and also throwing the ribbon in the air. So as a male, you could probably huck that thing a lot.
Nah, that's neutral. Come on.
But all right. So continue. Go down.
Right,
Go down your list.
Table tennis.
Completely gender neutral.
Yeah,
except for the kill shots. If you're a male and you can haul off and smash that half-an-ounce ball.
Have you ever played with like really good female players?
I played against a female AI character on Xbox Connect. Does that count?
No, it doesn't. I've played.
Let me tell you, that mofo is hard.
Like. Girl or guy, don't matter. That ball's spinning all sorts of ways, and I had no idea what was going on.
I guess at some point, well, first of all, neither you nor I are pro table tennis.
No, we're not.
If you're at Olympics level, you've surpassed pro level.
Yeah, like there's...
because, as we've seen before, pro NBA players get wiped out all the time going against other countries.
True.
On the Olympics
team. Team USA might not win it. Like, they've been losing to Nigeria and other countries.
Team USA basketball with pro players... I think historically loses. There might have been a blip once or twice, but historically
the dream team was
what were we on? Table tennis.
Table tennis.
So, I would still say gender neutral, because at some point there's a limit of what your brain can communicate to your reflexes to respond when the kill shot comes in. So even if a male is smashing that ball for the kill shot, it might not even matter because it's at the point that your brain just doesn't even register it, whether you're male or female anyway.
This is a hard one.
Yeah. Surfing?
Yeah. Surfing's an Olympic sport.
What?
Yeah.
I quit, Tiral. Podcast over, everyone.
We're done. We're tapping out.
We're tapping out. Surfing is an Olympic sport?
Surfing is an Olympic sport.
Is dog walking an Olympic sport too now?
I wonder about bobsleigh. Like, even bobsleighing, like, okay, a guy is a little stronger, but the girl is a little...
Well, you got the initial push, though.
Yeah, but the girl is a little less weight. I would say it's neutral. I would say, like, if you're a girl, like, you can make up for the lack of push with,
Yeah, the positive might be, or the counterbalance might be that you weigh less. Don't be the anchor, I guess.
Okay.
So surfing, I would go gender neutral, because that's
right?
individual competition.
Yeah.
That's not team.
It's not contact.
There's no contact.
It's artistry.
Yeah, there's an art form to it. I would even say before we even started doing this, I would even say, because I think you're just doing the summer sports right now, right? But
I'm doing it for the Tokyo Games. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I would even go out of the bounds of that and say snowboarding could probably be gender neutral. The only thing I can think of is the initial push or the initial inertia down the hill as a male. Gives you a little bit more because you might have more mass.
Yeah.
And then on your first,
first
half pipes, you might be able to pull higher moves.
Yeah, I kind of feel it's negligible. I mean, the point of that was just to show that there's many sports where it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Or if it does, maybe...
spoiler alert, folks. We're not going to go through all of the sports.
Yeah. Or if it does matter, maybe like you can do some tweaks to adjust the rules or point system or however it's judged to pick winners. To, again, give a fair...
Right.
Competitive.
But if it's an issue of raw strength or like versus type of sport, that needs to be gendered. Yeah. Especially contact.
Yeah.
Like let's say the judo.
Right.
The judokas. Right.
Boxing.
Oh, I'm a dude. Now I'm a chick. Guess what, ladies? You're all going to lose. You know.
I mean, there's a point where weight classes don't even things out.
Like, yeah, but if you have the strength of a male,
that's what I'm saying.
Right. You can tangle them up and use your weight because. Judo, right, is weight and strength.
Well, I mean, if weight classes...
I might be confusing judo with jiu-jitsu, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean.
Weight classes are supposed to even things out, but medical history also matters. You can have two people in the same weight class, but if one person has a different musculature than the other one...
Yeah, if you have higher bone density and muscle mass...
Right. It might not
and you're
matter.
The same weight, it doesn't matter. I'm going to win.
Yeah, in a contact.
Right, in contact, exactly, in contact. But in badminton, I don't think it's going to matter too much. That's another summer Olympic sport, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
but let's take one of your favorites, Stroll. Soccer or football.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, football has to be gendered.
Yeah.
Like it just there's contact and there's athleticism differences.
They're kind of a little bit about the sissies about the contact though. But
Well,
yeah, obviously I'm joking. But yes,
yeah.
obviously if you have a guy charging down the pitch
Yeah.
towards the goal and like
It's
somebody
different.
tries to slide tackle, they're going to end up with a Conor McGregor leg.
Yeah, it's
You know?
not gonna work out the same. So in summary, it's not trans athletes and it's not
They're not the problem.
they're not the problem.
It's the IOC made the wrong choice, and they really should have pushed. In that same New York Post article, folks, which I'm going to put in the comments, there was a study done to introduce a trans division, and it got squashed by trans people, actually.
What?
So they were kind of their own enemy in that one.
They went against it?
Yeah. Now, again, as Tiral and I have been discussing, really Tiral's point, I just ran with it, is that there's probably not enough trans athletes to fill out a division to have, full competition in all the sports that would be available. I definitely intend to watch the opening ceremonies. I think it's Friday night. And there's going to be countries that have like one or maybe a handful of athletes coming out. So maybe trans doesn't need to compete in every single sport anyway.
It's IOC's fault. They refuse to make hard decisions. They refuse to make difficult calls that would court.
Which is out of character for them.
Yeah, they just want money. They're just one of the most.
They just want to be able to fly the flag.
Yeah.
Do the corporate thing. Look, it's June.
Yeah.
We're all gay now. Give us your money.
Yeah.
Okay, it's July. No. Flag.
we're done.
Put the flag back in the closet.
Way back in the closet. I absolutely hate the Olympics. I think it's a scam. I think it's just money grubbing from one country to another. The only places that the Olympics can really successfully be done is dictatorships and authoritarians. Yeah, that's the only place where like showcases for evil empires.
On Dr. Evil's private island.
Yeah.
See, I think the Olympics to me is like WrestleMania. Like it's the world showcase of athletes, like raw power athletes doing what they do. And it's amazing to see that and to see people. It's the one thing that at least we get to see on TV, and hopefully it's not a lie, but we get to see people from different cultures, different walks of life, in different countries getting along. They're not yelling at each other, they're not pointing fingers, nobody's talking about, how your home loss sucks, or bitching about the Yankees, or the Islanders, or the Red Sox, or the Astros, or whatever. Like there's none of that. Like nobody's complaining about the sports team that they're on.
Yeah.
Now, once in a while, there's a bad apple. For the most part, it seems like it's a coming together of humanity. Faith in humanity, somewhat restored.
I think that's just a marketing scam. I don't think Olympics has anything to do with that anymore. I think most of these sports are not sport. There had to be a campaign.
How dare you insult curling, sir?
Listen, they had a campaign to keep wrestling an Olympic sport. It took a worldwide campaign.
What was it going to be replaced by, or was it just going to be dropped?
Just dropped.
Wrestling. Greco-Roman wrestling.
Not Olympic
the thing
enough.
that initiated the Olympics.
Not Olympic enough. It took like 3 years of protesting and campaigning.
How insane is that? That we're maintaining a tradition that was founded in ancient Greece.
Right.
How nuts.
Yeah, it's a good idea. But I hate the Olympics. We should have a sport where they let everyone cheat as much as they want. All the roads.
If you can do it, you can do it. Well, you know what? That brings me back to a comment I made to you earlier about something I need you to watch, Tiral.
Okay.
It's a movie. It's a mockumentary of the Tour de France, and it's called Tour de Pharma. Tour, Tourde, Pharma, Pharma. You will laugh yourself until you pee yourself. It's like underneath, it's very noir about like, this is what happens. This is what's going on in professional sports.
How could it be funnier than the real Tour de France, where like some stupid girl with a sign saying hi mom, hi
Kills
dad.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody dies except like the front 10 guys.
Yeah. And then like just the other 2 days before the thing ended, there was like a sausage truck that was just in the wrong place and didn't move out fast enough, and they're gonna ruin the whole event.
Imagine that. Imagine there's a sausage truck in the middle of like the Le Mans.
Yeah. Like, whoops. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's where I parked my car.
My brake lines aren't working.
Yeah, I saw that video. I think we're going to have to post that video too of some anonymous fan on the side of the Tour de France. right before the main body of the riders arrives, like the first 10, the front runners, they pass her. And then she turns to face the camera, and she has like this 10-foot cardboard sign, and they just boom right into it. And it literally took out the whole middle of the pack. Like, I think some guys actually broke bones. I know bikes, they showed some of the bikes where the frames snap. They just hit each other so hard.
Yeah, those frames are just delicate.
Yeah, because, they're ultralight bikes.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be as lightweight as possible so you're not moving a lot of extra weight. Unlike this idiot who loves to bike, and yet I wear a backpack with weight on it. All right, one more example I was thinking of, Tiral, before we sign off tonight, is Laurel Hubbard's an unknown. Nobody knows who that is. She's
unknown now.
She's known now, right? But I've been saying Laurel was in men's powerlifting. I don't know Laurel's men's division powerlifting record, but let's pick somebody that we all know. Let's say Usain Bolt decides I'm a woman now and wants to race in the women's division,
and he gets all his numbers down to,
and he gets the green light to do that.
Yeah.
Do you even think any other athletes would show up at that point?
No.
I mean, he'd be racing by himself.
Yeah,
and this
he'd be racing against air.
Yeah, he'd be racing his own numbers at that point.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen what happens. I'm going to watch to see what happens. I also I think we both do, Tiral. We both strongly support the Paralympics.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get anywhere near enough airtime. So check out the main Olympics, but we would recommend that you folks check out the Paralympics and see people really overcoming.
Yeah.
At that point.
Also, not just overcoming their handicaps, but being better than you. Like, sometimes I watch these Paralympic events, I'm like, what?
It's like, how are they doing that?
Yeah, like, I can't do that.
How are they maintaining, like, for example, Paralympics ice hockey. They're on a single blade in, like, a little frame.
Yeah.
And it's like, how the hell are you maintaining your balance on one blade and you're shifting your weight around, moving a stick, hitting a puck, dodging around other people playing?
Absolutely amazing.
Like, how the hell do you do that? So in summary, I think the answer that we both agreed upon would be a separate division. Separate division would make sense, levels the playing field, then you're just competing against people like you.
Second part of the solution is categorize sports properly.
Mm-hmm.
And make some hard decisions. Say, like, no, you can't be in this sport. Or, okay, you can. Or we might have to...
Except for curling. Curling is the god of sports.
I mean...
Sorry, Tiral, I interrupted you, man, but I got to tell you, I got a deep love for curling all of a sudden.
Everyone does. It's the weed.
It's meditative.
It's the weed of all Olympic sports. We know it's coming every 4 years. We don't like it any time, but when it's on, you watch.
You can't help but watch it. You can't help but watch it.
Yeah.
All right, continue your thought. I interrupted, Tiral.
Solution 2 is make the hard call and categorize sports. Saying in these sports, we don't care.
Or make the super tough call and say, no, we're sorry.
And make this, okay, so it's either we don't care, okay, you're in, but we have to twist the rules a little bit to adjust the scoring to make things fair. Or 3, like, no. Like, no, you can't do it. We're not going to let a boxer get in there.
All right, I think at this point, Tiral, we've beat it like a dead horse. Pretty much the obvious answer would be level the playing field, create separate divisions, and gender neutral the sports. That would open up the field, I think, even more.
This is a very complicated conundrum. There's a lot of ethical quandaries. There's a lot of hurt feelings no matter what you do. There's no easy answers. Main thing is don't hate the athletes, but hate the people who regulate and set the rules. Especially when they're...
I would say maybe question. Maybe not hate. Hate gets thrown around these days.
Question.
Everybody's a racist now. Everybody's kind of phobe.
Don't hate trans athletes for pursuing their passions, but be very critical of the regulators.
Question the regulating authority.
Yeah.
All right, on that note, folks, as always, please continue the conversation in the comments, maybe this time. And as always, please like and subscribe.
The less comments we have, the more Warhammer we're going to talk.
You know what? That's the challenge. Here we go. More comments or more Warhammer. Thanks again for joining us, everybody.
Have a good one.